You are Locked On Lions Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Detroit on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And here we go. Welcome into a live Locked On Lions postcast. So much to discuss on a wild ending. The Lions get it done. There was some good, there was some bad, there was some ugly, and we're going to break it all down next on a live Locked On Lions postcast. And happy Thanksgiving. I am your host, Jake Rietma. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake_Rietma. And that's the story. The Lions get their first win on Thanksgiving in 7 years. Man, it took a while, but woo, that was stressful. Palms were sweating. Mistakes were made. Poor officiating. It really was, by the end of it, just a whirlwind of emotions, and we're going to go right through it. And I want your help as well, so feel free to use the comment section. But it's a live Locked On Lions postcast, and I am fired up, as always, to be with you on Thanksgiving, no less. Thanks so much for making the Locked On Lions postcast your post-game destination to commemorate, whatever it is, discuss a Detroit Lions victory, 11-1 for the first time in franchise history, but not without some biting of the fingernails, biting of the kneecaps, whatever you want to call it, man. The Lions do get it done. But today's show is brought to you and made possible by Crossover Thursday Prize Picks. That's right. It's a Crossover Thursday right here on the Locked On Lions postcast, and that's why we are fired up as always for a Crossover Thursday on Prize Picks. Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the app and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Man, I think my brain is still a little bit scrambled from what we just watched in that second half. But this, I tweeted this out. It was such a frustrating game because the Lions just dominated that first half. They had their way with the Bears in every aspect of that game. It was 18 first downs to 2 in that first half. And one of the first downs was off of a Lions penalty. That's how much domination was taking place. But the Lions were 1 for 4 in the red zone in that first half. And so they kept stubbing their toe and they were playing with their food. And even though it's the Bears, it's the National Football League. You let a team hang around. That's what's going to happen at the end. And credit to the defense. I just watched the Jared Goff post game and David Montgomery and the rest of the crew enjoying the turkey. They earned the win. There is no doubt about that. They earned the win. But when you take a look at the tape, there's going to be a lot to clean up. We'll also get into some of the injury concerns because they were dropping like flies down the stretch. It was almost hard to watch, and it's getting to the point where I don't know how this defense can continue to take on injury after injury after injury. Fortunately, a lot of those guys were getting back in, and we saw them later as the game would continue on, and it opens up the door for players like Muhammad to make 2 really crucial plays down the stretch. But that's going to come up in the final segment. For right now, I want to get your comments on this because the officiating was extremely poor, and I never want to make that the main takeaway today. There's a lot of takeaways from a game like this, and Sam LaPorta with a nice game, 2 touchdowns. We'll get into that, but the officiating, it should have never come down to what it did. And obviously the Bears clock management, just egregious, coaching malpractice. If I'm Bears ownership and Ryan Poole is the GM, I don't let Matt Eberflus get on the plane back to Chicago. I leave him in Detroit. That was so horrendous. Caleb Williams is sacked with 33 seconds to go. You have a timeout and you just don't use it. I mean, I'm watching it like, what is happening right now? And that's the beauty of the live instant reaction postcast. I'm sure I'll go back and watch it and collect my thoughts a little bit. But man, I can't fathom how the Bears let that game end the way they did. But the Lions defense, again, that pass interference call on Vilder, I think that was just a tough call on him. I was texting with my brothers during this. DJ Moore gave up on the play. It was so woefully underthrown. He didn't even try to come back for the ball. I don't know how you call pass interference when the broadcast never really even showed a great look at it. Because again, I'm never going to say an NFL game came down to a bad call by an official because you have 60 minutes to win a football game. And in that case, though, obviously that's an altering call, but I certainly did not see where you make that pass interference call against the Lions, because it was DJ Moore had given up on the play. It was so underthrown. They were talking about whether or not it was catchable between Romo and Jim Nantz. I thought Jim Nantz made a couple of funny lines, but there was a couple of plays he was just lost in general. And I understand there's a lot going on, but I thought in that instance that they could have done a better job in just explaining why that call was made, and so on and so forth. But in any sense, I guess this is truly the definition of all is well that ends well. The Lions are 11-1 for the first time in franchise history. Wow. First time in franchise history, 11-1, 10 straight wins. That's hard to do it. They get the Thanksgiving monkey off their back. Jared Goff and company winning on Thanksgiving for the first time in the Dan Campbell era. And Goff, it meant something to these guys. They said it in the postgame. Goff said this was something we had to do. We had to cross this off the list, and they finally did. But the other frustrating part about this game, sorry, I'm flip-flopping all over the place, but that is what happens when you have that mind-numbing ending to a game like this. I'm all over the place, and I apologize for that. But Jahmyr Gibbs, and I understand fumbles happen, but Jahmyr Gibbs holds on to that ball at the latter portion of the second half and goes in for a score, and you're looking at a 24-0 game going, or 23-0 game going into the halftime break. But if you can't you can't look at a game that way. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Credit the Bears for making a play there, forcing the fumble, and they hung around. And as much as it pains me to say, Caleb Williams was really, really good in that second half. And for 3 of those touchdown drives, I mean, he diced that defense up. Now it is a defense that is woefully banged up and missing, all kinds of important pieces. But you give credit to Keenan Allen, had 2 touchdowns. I tweeted this out. Just, you can't have the Jameson Williams 15-yard penalty when the Lions get the ball in plus territory. They're driving in for a field goal that's going to make it a 2-possession game, and Jameson Williams throws the ball at the face of an opposing player because he's jawing with him. It's so immature. You just can't have it. And I saw him getting into it with Antoine Randall. And hopefully somebody gets through to Jameson Williams, because you just can't have those types of immature mistakes when you're going to win a football game. And again, it's the National Football League. There's not one single play that you point to and say it came down to this, but the margin of error in the NFL is so razor thin that you can't, and say it out loud, you can't throw the football at the face of an opposing player on the sidelines. You just can't do that. And so that's where some of my frustration comes from. But curious what you think as far as, your takeaways from this game. I thought, and Dan Campbell said this at the halftime break, there was something just a little bit off about the passing game for the Lions today. Although Jared Goff does finish with the 2 touchdowns, good to see Sam LaPorta have a really nice game and a nice bounce back game. And again, statistically, you dominated enough of the beginning portion of this game and into the third quarter where it shouldn't have even been a game in the fourth quarter. But Goff finishes 21 of 34, 221 yards with 2 touchdowns. Montgomery, 21 carries for 88 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs, 9 carries for 87 yards, nearly averaged 10 yards a carry, but that costly fumble, which was technically on a reception, if I remember right. I believe it was a screen pass that was set up to him. But point being, this was not the Lions A minus B plus game, not at all. I would say this was closer to a C minus game, and especially down the stretch, they allowed the opposition to hang around, and that's just not a recipe for success in the National Football League. But they'll put the tape on, and listen, I've been saying this all week, to play on a Sunday and then turn around and play on a Thursday. That's a tough ask. It's a tough ask physically, mentally. Your routine is all out of whack. And that's not an excuse, because both teams had to do it. But I think it's going to lend itself to sloppier play, which is part of what you saw, especially in that second half from the Detroit Lions. But, you could also counter that with, that's what makes it so frustrating, is you didn't see that. You didn't see any kind of, I don't want to call it rust, but you didn't see them. They started fast. They played well in that opening first quarter. And for about 13 minutes of that second quarter. The defense played so well, and you had a chance to go out and really put the nail in the coffin and end this game in a half. And instead, it turned into an absolute battle down the stretch. And again, some of that is a credit to Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears offense. But at the same time, I think to quote the late great Denny Green with the Chicago Bears at the end, they are who we thought they were, and that ending. Again, Matty, I'm not one to call for somebody's job, but Matty Eberflus, I don't know how you let that happen. But lots more to get into. First win for the Lions on Thanksgiving in 7 years. It was a weird one. There was twists and turns. The defense makes some great plays. I mentioned Muhammad with the 2 clutch plays in down the stretch there. You also saw the defense get a couple of really nice sacks. Zadarius Smith coming up big with some sacks, but just enough where guys were dropping like flies, and you never felt good, especially in that fourth quarter down the stretch, about how this was going to end. But the Lions do get the win. They're 11-1 for the first time in franchise history, 10 straight wins, and you'll take it. The Thanksgiving monkey is off your back. So we'll go over some of those injury concerns next. We'll also take your comments, and then we'll wrap it up with a little look ahead, because the schedule does not get any easier for the Lions, because instead of some additional time off, they got to turn around and play right away on in a week from now on a Thursday night game on Thursday Night Football. So we'll break that all down. Don't go anywhere. This edition of the Locked On Lions postcast is just getting started. Back in a moment on the Locked On Lions postcast. Hey, this episode of the Locked On Lions postcast is brought to you by FanDuel. That's right, my friends. FanDuel is here to help you get ready to tackle the NFL action with America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win that $5 bet. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, straight away to your comments on this live Locked On Lions postcast. Detroit defeats Chicago, and that sounds good anyway you slice it, any sport, whatever it is. Lions over the Bears 23-20. Lions moving to 11-1 on the season. Bears fall to 4-8. But again, a game that did not need to be this close at all. But let's get to the comments. Curious what you think. Let me know. Nothing's off limits. What you saw, what you liked, what you didn't like, the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever it is. And we open up the comment section and begin with a Rally Cap Baseball Talk says, let's go Lions, W. And Jim and Denise say Muhammad played well, game ball to him. Yeah, he had not only the sack in the last drive, but also the pass deflection as the defensive end was dropping into coverage, and a nice play call from Aaron Glenn and fit right in the window on an important, I believe that was a third down play. Might have been second down, whatever it may be, but I know exactly what play you're talking about. And it was a really nice play from the defensive end from Muhammad. Demetrius McNeil checking in says, hang 10, Jake, but thank the Bears for not calling a timeout with clock ticking away. That's right. They were broke by a Hail Mary at Washington. I think we're hearing Jared Goff chants all night. Yeah, I think so. I think there is a portion of the Lions fan base that this one doesn't taste as sweet as some of the other victories. You really do feel like this was a survival win, but hey, survive and advance is the motto. And in some portion, in all of athletics, right? You got to survive, you got to win, and ultimately that's what the Lions did today. Levi is up next. Levi Medema. Hope Carlton Davis is back for the game against Green Bay. I agree. Certainly missed him. And we picked on Kendall Vildor a little bit after the game against Indianapolis, and everyone's going to turn to that pass interference call on the 4th down. It was a really tough luck call because I didn't see it as a pass interference call by any means. R1 VJ4 says, if you thought Commanders looked bad last week against the Cowboys, Bears topped that one against the Lions. Yeah, this one, and again, I don't want to pile on the Bears because I've never been that type of fan, and sometimes I am, I guess, but the Bears to me are just irrelevant. They're a bad football team. Yes, they have Caleb Williams, and maybe they'll figure it out with the new coach and a new system, blah, 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 blah. But I am so hyper-focused on this year, and I think we all are as Lions fans. And with every single victory, the Lions get more and more national attention, as they should. They're the best team in the NFC at 11-1 now. And so I don't necessarily want to concern myself with how bad the Bears looked, but that was coaching malpractice down the stretch. Second comment here from R1 VJ4, fire that Bears coach for no timeout, LOL. Yeah, I completely agree. And we closed out with Rock Howard. Red zone was bad again, need touchdowns. Gibbs' fumble was huge. Yeah, 1 for 4 in the red zone in that first half. And Nance and Jim Nance and Tony Romo kind of pointed this out, where it just, they weren't, and it's almost like they and this is, you don't normally see this from the Detroit Lions, especially in the red zone. They've been really good in the red zone, but it was like they just, by the definition, would sputter out, and the drives would stall without the whether in that second touchdown was a good example of terrific play creativity from Ben Johnson, where it is a fake sweep to Jahmyr Gibbs, and then you have Sam LaPorta wide open in the back of the end zone. And I understand it's very, very difficult. You got to give the Bears defense a lot of credit for how good they were as a defensive unit in the red zone. But yeah, you certainly cannot have those types of continuous mishaps. And then Jake Bates, I mean, that's a field goal he has to make. He'll tell you that. He knows that. First miss of the season, and it came at a critical time. And Tony Romo called out Jim Nance for the announcer jinx. As someone that does a lot of play-by-play, I don't believe in the announcer jinx. You just, the kicker's got to go out there and make the field goal. But that was not exactly well-timed either. But all right, the injuries, man, this is going to be a lot to get through. And unfortunately, I mean, Levi Awunzawike, that's a tough name to say. And he has a hamstring injury, and Josh Paschal leave and didn't come back in this game. And the amount of injuries that and even it was just guys after guys after guys that were down. And, sometimes even Zadarius Smith was down a couple of times. You had Malcolm Rodriguez go down. You had just a little bit about everybody. Wingo went down. 9 different defensive linemen have been lost at some point this season. And unfortunately, it's just, I'm all for depth, and you definitely have a lot of depth with this team, but how could you start to ask yourself, how can you continue to withstand all of these hits? I know you'll get Anzalone back before the end of the season. Khalif Raymond went on injured reserve this week. You were without Taylor Decker, and that's just the guys that didn't play for this game. I mean, there's so many instances where the injury bug just continues to bite the Detroit Lions, and it's tough. You can't feel sorry for yourself, that's for sure. And I know nobody on this stream or on any stream is going to feel sorry for the Lions. That's life in the National Football League. Everybody deals with injuries, but man, you hope that the story of the second half of the season doesn't just become injury after injury after injury, but a lot of them today. And it's a necessary evil. It's a part of the game. We all know that, but hopefully after this game, and you look at the schedule, which we're going to do to close it up here, but obviously Green Bay is next. That's a Thursday game. And then the Buffalo Bills come to town on December the 15th. So man, 2 really tough games ahead for a team that is pretty well beat up. And then you go to Chicago on December 22nd before closing out the regular season in San Francisco. That's a Monday night game on December 30th. And then back home against the Vikings in that first week in January against or at Ford Field, I should say. So it doesn't get any easier. A really tough remaining schedule. If you look at it, other than the Bears, those are all, and the 49ers are fading, sure, but those are all really formidable opponents the rest of the way for a team that is really, really banged up. And that's why the bye week was tough. To have the bye week as early as the Lions did, that certainly was tough. But we got one more segment to do. Don't go anywhere. We're going to talk about what we're thankful for in this final segment and close it out here on a Locked On Lions postcast. This episode of the Locked On Lions postcast is brought to you by Game Time. That's right. You got to download the Game Time app for all of your live events because it's the only ticketing app you'll ever need because it is the best. As the time of the event gets closer and closer, the price gets lower and lower. And the great thing with Game Time is they guarantee that lowest price possible. And if you find a lower price, Game Time will credit up to 110% of the difference. How about that peace of mind so you know you're getting the best? Now, listen, buying tickets to a live event can be stressful, especially for a big group. Everybody's counting on you. Put all that stress away. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time because they've got you covered in so many different ways. And it's not just for sporting events. I'm talking concerts. Maybe you want to go to the theater, see a comedy show, whatever it is. Any live event, Game Time's got you covered. And my favorite part of the app, now you got to toggle this feature on in the app, but you turn on the all-in pricing. That way you get the nice, efficient bottom line number of what you're paying. And with that, you'll know exactly what you're paying up front. No surprise fees at checkout. Also love the panoramic photo that you get, so there's no deception. You know exactly where you're going to sit. And the Game Time ticket coverage is really nice as well because your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create that account and redeem it using the code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today, and I ask you, what time is it? Game time. All right, final segment of the program here on a live Locked On Lions postcast. Make sure you tune into Locked On Lions with Matt Derry on the daily side of things. Matt Derry on the daily. See what I did there? I'll keep you up to date on all the injury news because obviously some things are going to continue to break as we move in past the post game and a little bit of time off over the weekend. But man, right back to it because the Lions play again on Thursday night football against the Green Bay Packers. So back at home for that one. And listen, Packers play tonight on Thanksgiving. So all eyes will be on that game against the Miami Dolphins. And of course, this Lions team clinging to that divisional lead, got to root against the Vikings because everyone's talking about it, how great of a start this has been, the best start in franchise history for the Lions, yet the NFC North is so good this year that the Packers, and even closer than that, the Vikings are just lurking, and they won't lose any games either. So hopefully the Vikings can fall this weekend and the Packers lose tonight against the Dolphins on Thanksgiving. But win for the Lions this afternoon on Thanksgiving, first one in 7 years, and it was a wild one. I mean, you had a little bit of everything down the stretch. Lions held scoreless in the fourth quarter. A missed field goal from Jake Bates, which we talked about. Can't have that. But I don't think this is a call for panic necessarily. But the win streak's at 10 games, and you did enough to win, but it should not have been that close. That said, this defense at times was really, really stingy. And I think, again, you look to Aaron Glenn and how good he's been with the Lions on that front and how good they've been over the course of the last 4 games. You feel encouraged about that. And it's about getting healthy as well. And red zone execution will need to be better. Those are some areas to tie up. And finishing, going for the jugular. We kind of talked about that all the way back in the early portion of the season against Arizona, where they let the Cardinals kind of hang around, and then finally went for the jugular. This game had a little bit of that, where you let the Bears hang around, and finally it becomes a really close game. But fortunately, Lions hang on. get the win 23-20. Now 11-5 on the season, 5-1 at home. Back home on Thursday against the Green Bay Packers. Looking forward to the postcast on that. Don't forget, and we thank you again for making the Locked On Lions postcast your first listen. Check out Locked On Lions with Matt Derry. And also, you got to check out the new Locked On NFL with 2 shows every day. First, the Madman Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso, and then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Happy Thanksgiving. Let me know in the comments what you're thankful for. I'm thankful for the Locked On Lions postcast, Locked On Sports Detroit, whether it be Locked On Lions postcast, Locked On Pistons, Locked On Tigers postcast, Locked On Wolverines postcast. It's all been an enjoyable journey with each and every one of you. So whether you've watched one stream, whether you've watched them all, or somewhere in between, I certainly appreciate you tuning in to the Locked On Sports Detroit as we launch this post-game initiative. A couple more comments to get to. I knew we'd hear from my grandmother, Mary Jo Isaacson. Scary win today. Need our hurt players healed up. Thanks for 11 Lion wins. They were at the game. I know. I got some Snapchats from them. Great to see them at the game, enjoying it. And happy Thanksgiving to each and every one of you out there. Enjoy some time with family, friends, have an attitude of gratitude. And don't worry, because we'll be right back tomorrow for a Locked On Pistons postcast. Pistons taking on the Pacers. And then a doubleheader on Saturday, of course, after the Michigan-Ohio State game. Later on in the evening on Saturday, Pistons back in action as well. So it's a holiday weekend, sure, but it is a busy one. And looking forward to bringing you all the action on the Locked On Sports Detroit network. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Sports Detroit on YouTube. It's free. And have a wonderful rest of your Thanksgiving, and talk to you tomorrow. Lions beat the Bears. Happy Thanksgiving.